Daniel sat in the small command room of the human envoy ship, staring at the glowing screen in front of him. Outside, stars streaked past as the ship moved faster than light, carrying him into unknown space. His heart was steady, but his mind was full of questions. This mission was dangerous. He would face the queen of the Varan Empire herself. Many humans feared the Varan. Their empire stretched across several star systems. Their soldiers were skilled, their ships fast, and their rules strict. Few dared to stand in front of the queen and speak. And yet, here he was. He rubbed his hands together and remembered the warnings of his friends. Daniel, don't go alone. The queen does not forgive mistakes. One wrong word, and it will end badly. But he had volunteered. Someone had to explain why humans had entered the Varan border. The humans were searching for missing refugees. Pirates had attacked the outskirts of the cluster, and people had disappeared. It was a simple act of humanity. Yet the Varan did not see it that way. They only saw humans as invaders. Daniel knew he had to act wisely. He could not speak with pride or threat. He had to speak with truth. The ship shuddered as it approached the Varan throne world. Outside the window, Daniel saw a planet that glowed faintly with green clouds. Its surface was sharp and rocky, with tall towers rising like claws. Around the planet, dozens of Varan ships hovered, their engines humming. The human ship slowed and transmitted a signal. A Varan warship moved forward, blocking its path. A channel opened, and a deep voice said, "You will be escorted. Prepare to meet the queen." "Oh," Daniel nodded. He took a deep breath. "Understood," he said. He did not show fear. Even though he had no idea what would happen once he stepped onto the throne world, he kept his mind calm. The Varan warship guided the human ship into orbit, and docking clamps locked them into place. Daniel stood, smoothing the front of his uniform. He could feel the weight of history pressing on him. Humans had only recently traveled this far into Varan space. Many species warned them not to interfere. Many warned them that the Varan did not trust humans. Daniel thought about the missing refugees. If no one acted, they might never be found. If he failed, humanity might be punished. He had no choice but to continue. The docking bay was enormous. Daniel stepped onto the metal floor and looked around. The walls were sleek, polished, and covered in strange, glowing symbols. The air smelled faintly of metal and ozone. A group of Varan soldiers, tall and muscular, stood in formation. Their skin was smooth and pale, their eyes dark and unblinking. Each carried a weapon that looked both elegant and deadly. Daniel felt their gaze, but he did not bow or show fear. He simply nodded once and followed the lead soldier through the hallways. Every step echoed. He heard the quiet hum of energy running through the structure. Nothing about this place was ordinary. The Varan built their cities to impress and intimidate. This was a palace of power, not comfort. Finally, they arrived at the throne hall. Daniel paused at the entrance. The hall was massive, filled with light from a strange energy above. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Queen Alaris. She was larger than he expected, with skin that shimmered like polished stone and eyes that glowed faintly green. Her presence filled the room, making Daniel feel small. Soldiers knelt around her, silent and still. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of energy and the quiet steps of Daniel as he walked forward. The queen's voice rang out, smooth but sharp. "Human," she said, "you enter my hall without permission. You bring your people into my territory without thought. Explain yourself. Speak now, or face consequences." Daniel's heart did not race. He could feel the tension in the room, but he did not show it. He had rehearsed this moment many times, but he knew rehearsed words might not be enough. He had to speak truthfully. "I am Daniel," he said clearly. "I come as a representative of humanity. We do not seek conflict with the Varan Empire. My people only wish to find missing refugees who were attacked by pirates. They need help, and we are willing to provide it." His voice was calm, and he looked at the Queen without lowering his eyes. Many humans would have bowed, would have trembled, would have begged. Daniel knew fear was a tool, but honesty was stronger. He hoped it would reach her. The Queen leaned forward slightly, her expression unreadable. "You speak of helping, yet your presence disrupts my borders. Why should I believe your story? Humans are arrogant. You expand, you conquer, you interfere. One small act of help does not erase a history of interference. Give me one reason why I should not punish your people." Daniel paused. He could feel the eyes of every soldier in the hall on him. Some were curious. Some were skeptical. No one moved. He thought about what to say. Pride, strength, and argument would not win her over. Threats would only make her angry. But compassion, simple truth, might reach a part of her no one expected. He drew in a slow breath. "Because," he said, "humanity is not only about power. We are also about care. We help those in need, even when it is dangerous for us. We do not always succeed, but we try. The refugees we are searching for are not human. They are your people. They are Varan civilians who fled the pirates. We risk our lives to help them because it is right, not because it is required." The Queen's eyes narrowed. She had expected arrogance or fear. She had expected excuses. She had not expected this. Daniel did not back down. He continued. "Years ago, humans rescued Varan survivors from a similar attack. My people could have ignored them. We had no reason to help. But we did. We saved them. We cared for them. That is who we are. That is why we are here now." Alaris remained silent. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of energy from the ceiling. Daniel could feel the tension. But he did not move. He did not flinch. The Queen's soldiers whispered quietly to one another. No human had ever spoken to the Queen like this. Most would have bowed, begged, or stayed silent. Daniel had done neither. He had spoken the truth, simply and calmly. The Queen's hand moved slightly. She tilted her head, studying him. "You speak of mercy," she said. "Yet you are human. You are not obligated to care for my people. You risk death, and you still act. Why? What motivates you to put yourself in danger for others?" Daniel looked at her steadily. "Because it is right. Because we value life. Even life that is not our own. Because we believe in hope, even when hope seems lost. My people are flawed, but we do what we can to protect others. That is our choice. That is our answer." He paused. "We do not act out of fear or greed. We act because it is needed. Because it is right." The Queen's eyes widened slightly. No human had ever spoken so boldly and calmly before her. Her soldiers were tense, waiting for her command. Some whispered quietly, confused by her reaction. Daniel did not speak again. He waited. He had said all he needed to say. Now, it was up to her to decide what to do. For the first time in her rule, Alaris felt a flicker of uncertainty. She had faced diplomats before, had faced generals, and had faced rebels. She had crushed them all. But Daniel was different. His words carried no threat. His words carried no fear. His words carried truth. The Queen studied him, her mind turning over the strange concept of mercy from a species she had always considered arrogant. She had expected excuses, lies, or trembling fear. Instead, she found courage, honesty, and care. Finally, She spoke again, slowly, carefully. You claim to help my people. You claim to risk yourself for others. I will see if your words are true. You may continue your search for the missing refugees. But know this. If you deceive me, humanity will pay the price. Her voice was still sharp, but there was a hint of respect now. Daniel nodded. I understand, he said simply. We will do nothing to harm the Varen. We only wish to help. The queen leaned back in her throne. She had not expected to hear this from a human. She had expected arrogance, pride, or fear. Instead, she found honesty. She had expected a weak creature, but she saw someone who stood tall and calm in the face of power. She would remember this. Perhaps, she thought, humans were more than she had believed. Daniel turned and left the hall. The queen watched silently as he walked down the steps, escorted back to the docking bay by the Varen soldiers. He did not celebrate. He did not boast. He had only done what he believed was right. Outside, the stars waited, and the missing refugees awaited his help. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead was dangerous, but he was ready. As he re-entered the ship, he looked back at the throne world. Queen Alaris's eyes were still on him, thoughtful and quiet. He felt a small sense of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, a human could change the heart of a queen. Perhaps compassion could reach across the stars. And perhaps humanity had more power than anyone had imagined, not in weapons, not in numbers, but in courage and care. Daniel sat in his chair and prepared the ship to leave orbit. The search for the missing Varen refugees had just begun, and he was determined to succeed. He knew that the Queen's eyes would be on him, and that humanity's reputation was now tied to his actions. But for the first time in many cycles, he felt a sense of purpose stronger than fear. He carried with him the hope of both humans and Varen, who had suffered in silence, and he would not fail them. Daniel watched the stars streak past the viewport as the human ship left the orbit of the Varen throne world. The silence inside the cabin was thick, but his mind was racing. He had spoken before the Queen, and for the first time, he had felt a strange mix of fear and hope. He had said what he believed was right, but the Queen's words had been sharp. She had allowed him to search for the missing refugees, but she had not forgiven him or his people. The Varen watched humanity closely, and one wrong step could ruin everything. He turned to the communications console. A soft chime told him that someone was trying to contact him. It was Lydia, the ship's navigator. She was young, bright, and full of energy. She had volunteered for this mission because she wanted to see the stars beyond human space. "Daniel, are you okay?" she asked through the speaker. Her voice was calm, but carried a hint of worry. "I am fine," Daniel replied. "The Queen is cautious, but she is listening. That is enough for now." He paused. "We need to plot the course to the last known location of the missing refugees. We do not have much time." "Yes, sir," Lydia said, her fingers moving quickly over the console. "I have pulled up the coordinates from the distress signals. The pirates attacked a small colony on the edge of the sector. The signal was weak, but I traced it to a planet called Eridon. It is a rocky world, with few resources. Whoever is there needs help fast." Daniel nodded. "Good. Prepare the ship for faster-than-light travel. We need to get there before the pirates or anything else can harm them." He looked out at the stars again. The universe was wide, full of dangers, but full of hope too. Humans had survived much worse. They had traveled farther than most species dared, and they had never given up, even when everything seemed lost. The ship hummed as it accelerated. Daniel moved through the cabin, checking systems and equipment. He paused at the weapons console. The humans carried defensive weapons, though they preferred diplomacy. Still, he knew that in Varen space, Defense could become necessary at any moment. The pirates they were chasing were unpredictable, and the Varen might not tolerate delays. He could not underestimate danger. Hours passed in quiet preparation. The crew worked in rhythm, moving efficiently, speaking in calm voices. Daniel appreciated their dedication. They trusted him, and he trusted them. He knew that each person aboard the ship had their own reason for helping the refugees, and each carried hope in their own way. That hope now rested on their shoulders as much as on his. When the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the view of Eridon filled the viewport. It was smaller than they had expected. Jagged mountains rose from its surface, and dust storms swirled in the thin atmosphere. The signal had come from a valley near the eastern ridge. The planet looked harsh and unwelcoming, but Daniel did not hesitate. "Lydia, bring us down close to the valley. We need to land carefully." The ship descended slowly, the engines adjusting to the uneven terrain. Dust swirled around them as they neared the surface, and Daniel felt a small thrill of excitement. This was what they had trained for. This was what humans did best: face danger, help others, and survive. The landing was rough, but smooth enough to keep the crew safe. Once the engines shut down, Daniel stood and looked out the viewport at the valley below. "It looks empty," one of the crew said quietly. Simon, the ship's engineer, pointed to the valley floor. "There are some tracks, but not many. Whoever sent the signal may have moved. We need to search quickly." Daniel nodded. "Take only what we need. Stay together. Remember, we do not know if pirates or other dangers are nearby." He activated the comm system. "In their suits. We move in pairs. I will take the lead." The landing team moved carefully down the valley. The wind blew grit into their suits, and the sun reflected off the rocky cliffs, making visibility difficult. Still, they pressed on. Daniel's mind stayed focused on the refugees. If they were late, lives could be lost. If they moved too slowly, the pirates might return. Every step was measured, every glance alert. After a few hours, they found signs of life. Small campsites had been abandoned. Personal items were scattered around. The refugees had been here, but they had moved. Footprints led toward the northern cliffs. Daniel studied them carefully. "They went this way," he said. "We follow, but quietly. We do not know if the pirates are still nearby." The team moved silently through the rocky terrain. The valley grew narrower, the cliffs higher. Dust and wind made every step difficult. But Daniel did not slow down. They came to a small plateau and looked down. There, huddled in a natural cave, were the refugees. They were Varen civilians, just as Daniel had said. Families, children, and elderly. All trying to stay safe. Some looked injured, some weak from hunger. Their eyes widened as they saw the humans approach. Daniel stepped forward and raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "We are here to help," he said. "You are safe now. We will bring you to a place where you can rest and recover." Some of the Varen did not understand him at first, but the calm in his voice made them stop their panic. Slowly, they came closer. The refugees told their story. Pirates had attacked the colony weeks ago. Many had been taken, and those who escaped had hidden in the valley. Food and water were low, and sickness had begun to spread. Daniel listened carefully, taking note of each detail. He knew that the Varen Queen would want reports that were accurate and complete. He also knew that these people needed immediate care. "Simon," he said quietly, "set up a small medical area. Lydia, coordinate supplies from the ship. We need water, food, and blankets immediately." The team worked quickly. Even though the environment was harsh, their efficiency was remarkable. The refugees looked on, unsure at first. But slowly they began to trust the humans. As they worked, Daniel thought about the Queen's words. She had demanded an answer, and he had given one. Now, in the valley, he was living that answer. Humans did not help because it was safe or easy. Humans helped because it was right. Every action they took here was proof of what he had told the Queen. The refugees' safety depended on it, and that was enough motivation to keep moving. The afternoon passed, and the temporary shelter was set up. The refugees were given food, water, and medical attention. Some of the injuries were minor, others more serious. Daniel stayed close to the children, calming their fears and offering simple words of comfort. Even though they did not speak his language perfectly, they understood his tone. Safety, Daniel realized, was universal. The language of care did not need words. As night fell, the valley became colder and the wind stronger. Daniel and his team set up a protective perimeter around the camp. He took the first watch, scanning the cliffs for any movement. The stars above were bright and clear, and he felt a strange calm. They had done good work today, and the refugees were safe for now. But tomorrow would bring new challenges. Pirates might return. The Varen might watch. The journey back to the ship would be difficult. Still, Daniel did not doubt their mission. Humanity had faced danger before, and they had survived. They would survive again, and they would continue to help, even when others did not. That was the choice they had made, and that choice defined them. Around the small campfire, the refugees began to settle. Some whispered thanks in their language, and Daniel smiled. He did not need grand words. Actions spoke louder than words. The Queen would hear of this. And maybe, just maybe, she would begin to understand the truth of humanity. Not all power was in weapons or conquest. Some power was in courage. Some power was in care. Some power was in simply doing what was right, even when it was difficult. Daniel sat quietly, watching the fire. Tomorrow, they would continue their search. The refugees would be taken to safety, and the human ship would return to the stars, carrying proof of their efforts. He felt the weight of responsibility, but he did not fear it. He had chosen this path, and he would see it through. The universe was wide, full of danger and hope. And humanity, Daniel thought, had a role to play. A role not of destruction, but of life, courage, and care. The night passed slowly. Daniel kept watch until the early hours, then allowed Lydia and Simon to take over. The refugees slept, safe for the first time in weeks. Daniel closed his eyes for a short rest, but his mind stayed alert. There were more challenges ahead, more dangers, but he was ready. Humans had faced worse, and they had survived. He believed they could face anything the universe sent their way. As dawn approached, Daniel looked at the valley again. Mist rose from the rocky ground, and the first light of the sun touched the cliffs. He felt a small sense of hope. The refugees would live. His team would succeed. And the Queen, maybe she would begin to see that humanity was more than she believed. Not invaders, not threats, but something different. Something unpredictable. Something capable of care and courage beyond what most species understood. Daniel stood, feeling the cool morning wind on his face. He had come to this world to do a simple task: help those in need. And in doing so, he had begun to show the Varen something new about humans. The Queen had asked for an answer. Daniel had given one in words. Now he was giving one in action. And as he prepared for the next phase of their mission, he knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had more to prove, and they would do it not with pride or weapons, but with courage, care, and unshakable determination. The morning sun burned through the thin clouds above Eridan, casting long shadows across the rocky valley. Daniel stood at the edge of the temporary camp, watching the refugees gather their strength. Some were eating the rations brought from the ship, while others helped each other to stand or walk. Even in fear and exhaustion, the Varan people had resilience, and Daniel could see it in their eyes. It reminded him why they had to succeed. They could not fail. "Daniel," Lydia said, coming up behind him. "We have a problem. The scans from the ship show movement in the cliffs to the north. It looks like armed groups." She paused, her brow furrowed. "I think the pirates are nearby. They may have come back." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had hoped the pirates would have moved on, but the harsh truth of space travel was that danger often followed. "We need to act fast. Simon, get our weapons ready. Everyone stay close to the refugees. We defend first, then move if we must." The team quickly prepared. Daniel felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The refugees had nowhere else to go, and their safety depended on him and his small crew. He checked their positions and made sure everyone knew their roles. Lydia manned the scanner, Simon checked weapons, and the rest of the team took positions along the rocks and cliffs. The pirates appeared just as the sun rose higher. Small ships hovered above the valley, and armed figures began to descend on ropes and gliders. Daniel watched them carefully. They were rough, unorganized, but dangerous. They had no respect for life, only for plunder. The humans had faced pirates before, but this time, innocent lives were on the line. "Stay calm," Daniel said to the refugees, even though his own heart raced. "We will protect you. Do not run unless I tell you." The Varan looked at him with fear and confusion. They did not understand his words perfectly, but they trusted the tone. Safety and courage were universal languages. The first pirates landed, running across the valley floor. Daniel moved quickly, signaling his team. The humans were faster and better coordinated than the pirates expected. With precise actions, they created barriers between the attackers and the refugees. Daniel picked up a small energy rifle. Aiming carefully, he did not want to kill unless necessary, but he would not let anyone harm the Varan. The fight began. Laser bolts lit the dusty valley, hitting rocks and cliffs, sending sparks and dust into the air. Pirates screamed as their ranks fell into disarray. The humans moved calmly, almost like dancers, blocking attacks and protecting the refugees. Daniel's heart raced, but his mind stayed clear. Every movement had purpose. Every step counted. One pirate tried to rush a group of children hiding near a rock. Daniel ran faster than he thought possible, intercepting the attacker and knocking him down with a precise strike. The children screamed, but Daniel reassured them. "It is okay. You are safe now." A mother clutched her child and nodded, her eyes full of gratitude and fear. The battle continued for hours. The pirates were stronger in numbers, but the humans had better coordination and careful strategy. Daniel directed the team with calm authority, signaling when to move, when to take cover, and when to counterattack. Lydia's scanning helped them anticipate attacks, and Simon repaired damaged equipment quickly. The refugees were kept inside a small natural enclosure, safe from the chaos outside. At one point, the pirates managed to reach the cliff edge where Daniel had stationed a defensive line. They fired, hitting rocks near the humans. Dust filled the air, making it hard to see. Daniel shouted instructions, moving through the smoke to protect his team. One pirate tried to ambush him from behind, but Daniel turned quickly and knocked the attacker off balance. The pirate fell, screaming, and the rest hesitated. Daniel's presence was strong. He did not strike out of anger, only necessity, and the pirates could feel it. After several hours, the pirates realized they were losing. They had underestimated the humans and their determination. Slowly, they retreated, leaving behind some of their supplies and weapons. The humans did not pursue immediately. Daniel knew the pirates might regroup, and a chase could be dangerous for the refugees. Instead, they secured the camp and checked for injuries. The refugees came out of hiding. They were shaken, but alive. Daniel and his team provided water, comfort, and medical care. Many of the children clung to him, not understanding fully who he was, but knowing he had saved them. He smiled gently, patting their heads. Even in chaos, compassion could reach across species. "Are they all accounted for?" Daniel asked Lydia. "Yes," she replied. "No. Serious injuries. We did well. The pirates will think twice before attacking again." End quote. Luxiter lever, the foregone, was it ascom rescozid, wels plus, well space, end quote. Well space, end quote. Daniel nodded but did not relax completely. Good. But this is not over. We need to move them to safety soon. The Varen Queen may not trust us yet, and more dangers could come. We have to keep them alive until we can deliver them to her. They prepared the refugees for evacuation. Each adult and child received supplies and was organized in small groups for safe transport. Daniel led the way up the northern cliffs, using a natural path that minimized exposure to open areas. The wind was strong, but the humans moved steadily. They had trained for this, and every step showed the skill and care of people who had faced dangers before. As they moved, Daniel thought about the Queen again. Queen Alaris had demanded an answer from him, and he had given one in words. Now he was giving one in action. The Varen were watching, even from afar. Each life saved was proof of humanity's courage and care. Perhaps she would understand, perhaps she would not. But Daniel could not worry about politics now. Lives were at stake, and he had to act. Halfway up the cliff, they encountered a small group of pirates trying to block their path. Daniel signaled the team. They did not hesitate. Using coordinated movements, they neutralized the threat quickly. The pirates were surprised by their calm efficiency and retreated down the cliff. Daniel checked his team. Everyone was safe. No one was left behind. Finally, they reached a plateau above the cliffs. From here, the valley was visible below. The refugees were exhausted, but safe for the moment. Daniel looked at their faces, and for the first time, a small sense of relief washed over him. They had survived the initial danger. The pirates had been driven off. And soon, they would be transported to the human ship and then to a safe location. But there was still work to do. Daniel called the team together. "We need to secure the area and make sure no one follows us. Then we transport the refugees to the ship. We cannot afford mistakes now." He paused, looking at each team member. "We have done well so far. Let us finish what we started." The team worked quietly, setting up small sensors and alarms to alert them if anyone approached. Lydia monitored the scans, and Simon adjusted equipment to detect movement in the surrounding cliffs. The refugees rested in a small, protected area, under the watchful eyes of the humans. Daniel kept his rifle close, but did not point it unless necessary. They were a shield, not a threat, and that was how he wanted them to appear. As night approached, the sky darkened, and the stars appeared above. Daniel felt a strange peace in the moment. The battle was over, the immediate danger had passed, and the refugees were safe. He sat quietly, watching the fire that Lydia had built for warmth. The Varen children were curious, staring at the small flames, learning something about humans they would never forget. Daniel thought about the Queen again. She had demanded an answer, and he had given one in words. Now he had given one in deeds. This was humanity in action. Not prideful, not arrogant, but willing to face danger, willing to protect life, willing to do what was right, even when it was hard. The Queen might not understand yet, but she would hear of this. She would see the humans were not like other species. They were unpredictable. They were brave. They were capable of care. Daniel looked around the camp. The wind blew across the plateau, carrying dust and the scent of rock and earth. The refugees slept, exhausted but alive. His team rested nearby, alert but calm, and Daniel knew that the next day would bring more challenges. The journey back to the ship would not be easy. The pirates might return. The terrain was difficult, and the Queen's patience was limited. But for now, they had survived. They had succeeded. He allowed himself a small moment to breathe. Humanity had been tested again, and they had passed. They had not conquered through power, not through weapons, but through courage, skill, and compassion. And that was the lesson Daniel hoped the Queen would understand. Strength was not only in domination. Sometimes, it was in protecting the weak, in risking oneself for others, in showing that life mattered even in the face of danger. The night passed slowly, but this time it was quiet. Daniel kept watch for a while, then allowed the team to rest. The refugees slept peacefully under the stars, and Daniel knew that their lives were in human hands for now. He had promised safety, and he would keep that promise. The stars above reminded him of how far humanity had come, how far they still had to go, and how much they could teach the universe about courage, care, and determination. As the first light of dawn touched the plateau, Daniel stood again. The refugees were waking, the team was preparing, and the path back to the ship awaited. The humans had proven themselves here, and the Queen would hear of it. The story of their courage and care would travel faster than light, and Daniel knew that the mission was far from over. More challenges would come, more dangers, more tests of their courage. But he also knew one thing: humanity would not fail. Not now, not ever.